Okay. Oh, yeah.
Stop creaking. Wait, you creaked too much. We needed to be quiet for a second. Hello and welcome to Your Favorite Book Podcast. I'm Mallory.
I'm Tanner.
We're siblings.
We like reading books.
This week we read Guards by Terry Pratchett. This is a book that Tanner suggested me to read, and I loved it.
Yes.
It was so much fun.
I never miss with you.
It's true. To be fair, I am much more a mood reader than you are.
Yeah.
Maybe mood reader is not the right word there.
No, I don't. Normally, I don't
entertained.
finish books that I don't like.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
That's why this podcast has been good for me.
And I'll read anything. You could tell me to read The Thesaurus, and I would be like, there were some great moments. I'm also a chronic people pleaser, so I'm incapable of telling you if I hated it. Just kidding.
I am not. Well, I am a people pleaser, but I'm also a bit of a jerk.
Yes, you
So
are.
I'm not afraid to
Just
say, Mallory Sargent Mass is a bad writer.
To be fair, I told you she was a bad writer before you
I know.
even read
And
Aquatara.
after I read Aquatara, I was like, she's not that bad. And then
Throwing a
3
glass
months later,
happened.
yeah, oh God.
Anyway.
That's not what we're here to talk about.
No, we're talking about Guards. So tell me about your history with Guards.
Okay, so the first Terry Pratchett book I ever read was Guards. I was maybe 13 or 14 on a road trip with our dad. And we were going on like some kind of scout trip to Yellowstone. We stopped at this lodge and we were just looking for books to buy. There was like a teeny tiny book stand. And we saw we saw a copy of Guards, the one that I gave you to read, not that one. And Dad was like, you've never read Terry Pratchett before? I'm like a little kid. I'm like, no, I never read it before.
All I do is play Bionicles and Legos.
Yeah, it's true. And listen to Pandora Radio.
Yep.
The only books I read were the ones that Mom and Dad gave us. So I don't know why Dad was so surprised. Although this might be a false memory. He was like, you've never read this before?
Yeah.
Like, I can't go to the bookstore on my own and buy books. I guess I could have, but I didn't do that. Anyway, I read it on the trip. I devoured this book in like 2 days.
Dang.
I was so much more interested.
While
we were at Yellowstone,
there's
we're like
a
in the
bison
car. There's
walking next
wolves
to
like
you.
attacking a bison. There's like militia
Great
people.
waterfalls.
Yeah,
Oh my
geysers.
Yeah.
The most incredible things in nature all around me. And I'm
you're
just like reading about these
A
ridiculous
dragon!
characters. Oh, I love Carrot so much. I'm just like Carrot. I'm 6 feet tall. And I absolutely fell in love right away. It was unlike anything I had read before. I had read books like Harry Potter and Percy Jackson, which were like middle grade fantasy books, which I really loved, but nothing that was as laugh out loud hilarious as Guards. And it felt a little bit more, totally felt more grown up. The characters were adults. Some of them were like middle-aged adults.
Yeah.
The problems were more large scale, I guess. Maybe not so true.
I think so. I mean, in the beginning you hear about these people who are like, I'm, oh my gosh, what was the word they used?
You're going to have to be a bit more specific.
Oh my gosh, in the beginning they're trying to start a problem. They're like, well, I'm discriminated against by my landlord.
Oh yeah, the elucidated.
Oppressed.
Oh yeah.
That's the word they use.
Yes.
My wife oppresses me every day.
Yeah.
Anyway.
The lady at the vegetable stand, she oppresses me.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it is more grown up. A lot of the words I didn't know. I reread this book this year, and it was maybe like the 6th or 7th time I've read it.
Yeah.
And I was still learning new words. So as a 14-year-old, I loved it.
Yeah.
And as a 29-year-old, I really loved it even more, which is very rare for a book where it's like it can speak to an adult audience and a very young audience.
Yeah, that's really incredible and fantastic to be able to entertain both of those audiences at the same time. That's incredibly difficult.
Yeah. It's
that's
crazy
amazing.
that he can have like this cynical social commentary take on the way the world works and how humans behave, how societies are built.
Yeah.
While at the same time, the final conflict ends with a dragon extremely flatulent.
Yeah.
Like the most childish climactic ending you could think of. And, you know, a really serious, cynical take on how society works.
Yeah.
Merged into the same book, and it works.
It's impressive. I don't know how he did it, but boy, am I glad
brilliant.
he did.
Yeah, me too. He's a one-of-a-kind writer.
Yeah.
It's very rare when you find someone who's as clever a wordsmith as him, or who can write about such interesting characters.
Yeah.
Like the main character, his Captain Vimes, he's like, I imagine he's in his 40s, middle age.
Yeah.
He's drunk. He's not a very good person.
He's really bad at his job.
He's terrible at his job, but everyone in the Night Watch is terrible at their job. And it's by design.
Yes.
Yeah, I could just talk about this book forever, and I'm so glad that you enjoyed it and that you read it. At 14, Guards began my love affair with the Discworld and its characters. And I haven't read all of them, but I want to.
Yeah. Well, I'm liking it. I'll read the next one for sure,
oh, good.
At least.
Yeah.
I have only read one other Terry Pratchett book in my life, and it's The Carpet People. There was a year in middle school or high school where, like, our sister Val read it, and our sister Annie read it, and I read it, and I think Mom might have even read it too, because Mom was like, oh, here, this is just fun. Read it. It's a hoot and a half. And I loved
story.
it. It is. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's an interesting idea, and I really enjoyed the writing, but I didn't ever pick up anything else that he had written before. And I don't know why I didn't. But
yeah, I read The Carpet People, and it's good, but it's not his best work.
Yeah.
He wrote that when he was, from what I understand, very young, like 14 or 15 or
which
something.
is crazy, but whatever.
Yeah, he's just a lifelong writer.
Yeah.
Born to be that role.
Yeah, he's definitely a storyteller.
Yeah. For people who don't know, Terry Pratchett, I believe he's passed away. He is most famous for the Discworld series. He also co-wrote Good Omens with Neil Gaiman.
Yes.
He's widely regarded as a satirist and a humorist.
Yes.
And he's very prolific. He's got maybe 40-something books in the Discworld. The great thing about the Discworld is that it's his own universe that he's built. It's very wacky and fun. Takes place on the back of a giant turtle, Altuin.
Yes.
And on the back of the turtle stands four elephants.
And then on top of that is a
disc.
Dome, a disc.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh gosh.
So it's so
fun.
silly. But the characters are real, and they don't look at those things and say, isn't that weird? Like winking at the audience.
Yes.
Like Marvel humor, where it's like, isn't it weird that Ant-Man can get really big? It's like, just,
Yeah.
Why can't the characters in the universe treat those things seriously, or else it breaks the illusion?
Yeah, that's part of what I enjoy, that, like, the most bizarre stuff happens in this book, and it's like, oh,
They accept
that's regular.
it.
You know, just like people put tablecloths on tables.
Yeah.
You know, it makes it feel that much more realistic and fun, and
It doesn't make you feel bad for taking that world seriously.
yes,
right?
yeah, that's a great point. It gives the reader an excuse to totally just sit in and enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Like,
And immerse themselves in that world.
Yes, yeah. It's fantastic.
You don't have to start at like book 1 with the Discworld series.
You can kind of pick and choose a little, right?
Yeah. My favorite was Guards, obviously. So I think it's a good place to start. But like I said, I haven't read every single Discworld book. But I prefer to start somewhere in the middle of his career.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot more that we can enjoy. So we should go over the plot of
Guards was so much fun. One of my favorite scenes in the whole entire book is the way that this book starts out, which is a member of the Elucidated Brethren is trying to find...
It's a dark and secret cult.
Yes. It's like a cult, and he's like he knocks on a door, and he's like, they're trading back all of these phrases that are like passkeys and passwords, and then halfway through they're like, oh, you're in the wrong spot. The Elucidated Brethren is the next door over. And they're like, oh, I thought this was this. And they're like, oh no, we're the, I don't remember what the name is, but they're like,
we're a different cult.
We're a different cult. And then they're like, I thought you were in this room. And they're like, oh no, there's like a yoga class going on that day. So on Tuesdays we swap. I'm like, what? It's so much fun.
Yeah.
He goes to the actual elucidated brethren, does the whole passwords all the way through again, which is like a lot.
And it's raining outside.
Multiple back and forth. And he's like,
will you please just let me in?
Yeah. They go in and there's, the guy in charge is like leading this cultish...
The supreme leader,
yes,
right?
Everybody has hoods on and they're like, ooh. The guy in charge is like, okay, how am I going to convince these morons to summon a dragon so that I can become the king? Mm-hmm. And the commentary on this conversation, I'm sorry, I know I'm focusing on the first scene, but
No.
I loved it.
Yeah, no, this is a good place to start.
The commentary from the perspective of this book is very interesting, where it's outside of everybody, but every now and then you'll get an internal kind of monologue or insight into different characters.
So you're saying it's written in omniscient third person.
That's exactly
POV.
what I was saying, and I knew that was what the words were.
I'm just giving you the language to
that's
describe
perfect.
what you're saying.
It was fantastic, and I loved it.
Yeah.
But we see...
And there's like maybe 5 or 6 different characters.
Yes, there's quite a few. And this guy in charge, the secret ultimate lord of this elucidated brethren, is like, how am I going to manage it? And all of these people in the meeting are so stupid that they do it for him. And he's like...
Wow, I didn't have to do anything.
He's like, I can't believe this worked. So the elucidated brethren have a secret book that they stole from the library, from the librarian.
Brother Fingers.
Who is an orangutan. Mm-hmm. I loved this book.
I know, it's so good.
And they decide to summon a dragon. Because they're like, oh, if there's a dragon here, then of course a long-lost prince or someone's going to come slay the dragon and then be the ultimate ruler and everything's going to be fine and happy. Duh, that's the way to solve our problems with our landlords and the vegetable keeper who's mean to me down the street.
And my wife who doesn't judge, or my wife who judges me. I don't know if that's a specific example.
No. It's my wife who's like, thinks I'm not as good as our brother-in-law.
Ah, that's right.
Which is like so fun.
All of these... So the supreme ruler, he's the one who has the grand plan to summon a dragon, and he has to convince these dullards, these peasants, that relying on these fantasy tropes, and this is where Terry Pratchett's power as a satirist comes into play, where it's like, in every fairy tale, when a dragon shows up, it will take the princess, and then a prince will show up, kill the dragon, marry the princess, and he'll become the king.
Yes.
So he's trying to convince his followers, like, as soon as we set up summon a dragon, those things will happen. And they're all like, yep.
They're like,
yep, that's
and
exactly
he'll have
what
a
happens.
sword from ancient times. He'll have a forgotten birthmark. It's so great.
And the way he convinces them to go along with his plan is by reminding them of the ways that society has oppressed them.
Yes.
Because currently their ruler is the patrician, and we won't get into that quite yet, but he's a great character.
Yeah.
And the patrician, he's not a king, he's more of like an authoritarian.
Yes.
But he's written kind of as like...
evil sheriff of Nottingham when Prince John is in the Crusades.
Yes, but he's very intelligent.
Yes.
He's kind of similar to the supreme ruler, but he's less theatrical.
Yes.
He likes to rule the world, but he prefers to do it behind the scenes.
Yeah.
He does such a good job of making him feel really smart, but that's not what we're talking about right now.
No, you're good.
And the supreme ruler tells his followers, think of all the ways that you're oppressed in life, and then they come up with these hyper-specific examples. And he says, it's the government's fault that the vegetable owner is oppressing you.
Yep. It's so fantastic.
Yeah.
I just loved it.
But that's also where his social commentary comes into play, too. Where it's like, that's what happens in our society.
Yeah.
Like, we get these government leaders saying, it's immigrants. They prey on people's xenophobia. That's why you're poor. They're stealing your jobs. When in reality, that's not the real problem.
No.
They're making us... And it's similar to Hunger Games, right?
Yeah.
It's a similar message, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
Where it's like, the people in power will try to make the poor people that they control, the oppressed people, fight amongst each other rather than uniting and facing
taking
against
control
the real
over
people,
the actual problem.
the true elites.
Yes.
Who prefer to operate behind the scenes in the shadows.
Yeah.
So that's who I think the Supreme Leader represents.
Yes.
And I know that we said we were going to do a brief overview of the story.
If we liked the first 25 pages this much, let me tell you something. We liked the remaining 100 and however many even more.
It was so good. But that's a great way to just introduce this story, is because it establishes the perfect tone.
Yes.
It's hilarious. Mm-hmm. The writing is so brilliant and sharp.
Yes. Yeah.
I would love to memorize this entire book.
Oh my gosh.
Could you imagine that in a play? Just that first scene, doing the portal scene would be amazing. Gosh.
And there's a couple of key writing devices that Terry Pratchett uses often, and he's a master at them. And one of my favorite things he does is metaphors and
oh my god,
analogies.
His descriptions, yeah.
Oh my gosh, the way that he describes human behavior using hyper-specific situations, and he describes them using generalized feelings that people are familiar with. Just read the book. I don't know how to better explain that.
We don't have any specific examples, but
his use of metaphors and similes and analogies are just perfect, and so you read it and you're like, who thought of using that to explain it? But that's perfect.
Yeah. And it's almost always clever and hilarious.
Yes, it's so fantastic.
Every page is a laugh out loud moment for me.
Here's a bad example that is not word for word, but if it was word for word, you'd go, oh yeah, it's fantastic. He was trying to explain how someone was disappointed in something, even when they shouldn't have been disappointed. And the metaphor he uses, I don't know if...
Yeah, metaphor. Go ahead.
Okay. The metaphor he uses is, he looked down at him as if he was a mother-in-law inspecting a daughter-in-law's mantelpiece for dust and came away with a clean finger.
Yeah. It's perfect.
It's just so fun and interesting.
Yeah.
I love
it. There are so many authors who have, so many famous authors who have drawn inspiration from Terry Pratchett and have tried to write like him.
Yeah.
And you can notice it once, J.K. Rowling is a very famous example. And once you have read both their works and you read Harry Potter, it's oh.
You can see the ties or the inspiration.
Where it's funny, goofy names.
Yes.
Really good job of world building through language and establishing a mysterious tone.
Yeah.
But in Terry Pratchett's case, it's almost always a hysterical tone, a really goofy tone.
Yes.
Which is just so wonderful. It just makes you happy.
I love it.
How often do you get a book like this?
No, it's so fantastic.
Yeah. Tamsin is another one who I have seen a lot of similar writing styles.
Yeah.
It's obviously a very different tone, but her ability to write very clever descriptions and I think, very lovable and goofy characters.
Yes, and I think both of them are so... We've talked about this in all three, I think, of our Locked Tomb episodes.
Yeah.
Where Tamsin Muir is unabashedly proud to be herself and write the way that she wants to write.
Yeah.
And I think Terry Pratchett has that. You can feel that same feeling in his writing.
Totally.
And that's part of why they feel similar too, to me.
Yes, they're both iconoclasts in their own way. They don't care what the market is. The reason why we say that the reason why we say you don't read books like this very often is because most authors are
I'm writing to market.
A fairy tale.
Or, yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And I think, I don't know, maybe it's good that I read Harry Potter and Percy Jackson before I read Terry Pratchett. Because I wonder if I wouldn't have appreciated it quite as much.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because if you have a good background of reading your basic fairy tales, and this isn't a slight against those books or books that are written to market, because I love those books too.
Yeah.
Then you don't have a full appreciation of his satire.
Yes.
Of he leans heavily on tropes.
Yeah.
And turns them on their head. And it makes the book so much more enjoyable that way.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that so many times in this episode.
Me
I just
too.
really enjoyed it.
So what's the basic story about?
So those people summon the dragon.
The elucidated brethren.
And the dragon comes and wreaks havoc on the whole town. And they're like...
On the city of Ankh-Morpork.
City of Ankh-Morpork. Morpor or Morpork?
Morpork.
Morpork. I couldn't remember. And they're like, oh no, someone help us, we need some help. And then we also get a new POV, kind of, but not really, but new POV from a man who's been raised with dwarves, who is a human, and the day his dad is like, you're a human, he's like, what? He's like 6 feet tall among the dwarves, totally.
He's got a hunchback.
Yes, it's a fun moment.
He's a 16-year-old boy named Carrot.
Which is such a good name. I loved the names in this book.
Yeah.
And he's like, you need to go live with the humans and find some purpose away from us. We love you, but you don't belong here. And
it's the ugly duckling story.
Yes, it is.
But except the duckling has been living with like geese his whole life.
Yes.
And he's like, I'm not a goose.
yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And so he goes and travels to find a job as a member of the Night Watch, which is basically the police force system in this world. They're like guards, guards.
Medieval police force, yeah.
Yeah.
Peacekeepers.
And the members of the Night Watch are notorious for being bad at their job, and they bend a lot of the rules and create rules so that people can continue bending the rules.
Yes.
Such as, there's a thieves guild who is allowed to do thieving within the bounds of the thieving laws they set up.
Which is a part of the patrician's plan, or the way that he runs Ankh-Morpork, which makes him such a brilliant character and a leader.
Yeah.
Which he loves organization and accounting for things, and he understands people very well, and says, okay, there's going to be thieves.
Yeah.
Why don't we just make them an official part of the government, and they have to fulfill a certain quota each month?
Yes.
So that it's all organized crime. Which is so
funny.
Brilliant.
And
anyway, he's also...
Yeah. Oh,
sorry, just
no,
real quick.
You're good.
He's also purposefully defunded the Night Guard. So the Night Watch were not always seen as dullards and fools and failures. There's only 4 employees. And one of them, at the beginning of the story, before the story begins, has died.
Yeah.
And so they're looking to fulfill a new post, and that's when the king of the dwarves writes to the patrician and says, oh, honorable patrician,
yes,
please allow my
Carrot.
son, Carrot, to join the esteemed Night Watch.
And they're like,
really? You're volunteering to work here? The Night Watch is the worst.
Yes, it's so funny.
And so Carrot shows up to Ankh-Morpork expecting to become a member of this noble, honorable guard.
He's read every code, memorized the handbook.
I love Carrot's character so much.
I do too. He's so funny. He's like, I'm going to do good. I'm going to stop crime. And he gets there and they're like, the first thing he does is arrest the Thieves Guild leader.
Yeah.
And they're like, what are you doing?
You're not supposed to arrest a thief.
No,
He's the king of the thieves.
It's so funny.
So a little bit about Carrot.
Yes.
Obviously, he grew up a human among dwarves, and he was 16 years old when he found out that he was actually human. Obviously, a real person would have figured that out much earlier, or someone would have told him.
Yeah.
But it tells you so much about like the world building of the dwarves, which is like they're very polite. They wouldn't tell Carrot, "Hey, you're not one of us."
Yeah.
And they would also, it also tells you a lot about Carrot, where it's like, he's a little dim-witted.
Yeah, he's just happy to be there.
Yes.
He wants to belong. That's his core, I think that's his core thing, is he wants to do good and belong and lift up the people around him.
Yeah. He's one of my favorite character archetypes, where it's like, they're a little naive, but they might fall ass backwards into fortune.
Yeah.
And like not through their own efforts.
Yes.
And they wouldn't realize it. And also if they lost everything they had, they would still be super happy.
Yes.
Like I love that character type.
He's just a sweetheart.
And Carrot, while he's super naive, is very, very smart.
Yes.
Because he travels on foot to Ankh-Morpork. And like you said, he has this book of rules, which is the old version of the Night Watch's laws and ordinances of Ankh-Morpork, right? And he memorizes every page.
Yes.
And so when he arrives at the Night Watch, and everyone is shocked at how prepared he is to be like the best cop ever.
Yes.
Like by any metric, they would see him as, star-studded example. They are totally surprised at that. And also at his earnestness and brashness.
Yeah.
Where like he won't even listen to his captain when they tell him don't arrest that thief.
He's like, no, the thief disobeyed this law, this law, this law, this law, and this law.
And he lists them off verbatim.
Yes.
And it's so charming.
It's not like he's generalizing anything. He's like, oh, it's just fantastic.
Yes. Law C under subsection III dot whatever.
Yeah. It's so good. But then they're like, there's a dragon in there.
So who's going to take care of the dragon?
Yes. I don't think they know either. And they try to...
They don't.
They go to... There's a swamp dragon breeder nearby. And they're like, let's go... The Night Watch is like, let's go talk to her and see what she can do to help us. And her name is Lady Ramkin, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So they go over there and they're, seeing this great dragon breeding program, which, by the way, there's a character in here named Veterinary. Mm-hmm. I spent the whole book thinking that they were a dragon veterinarian. I did not connect that was their name. And the whole time, funny. I'm like, why aren't...
Lord Veterinary.
Yeah, I thought they were a veterinarian. That's just a side point in my own fallacy. Yeah. He was not a dragon veterinarian, but the whole time I was like, how come he's not? Mm-hmm. Whatever. That's just me being silly. Anyway, there's this character who knows all about these swamp dragons, and she's very intelligent, and I really loved her character a lot. She's very fun. She loves dragons, which, I also love dragons, and she gifts them a dragon to help them. Right? She gives them a dragon named Errol, which I love the name Errol as well. And I don't know.
Well, the basic plot of this book is that the elucidated brethren are trying to take over the city by summoning a magical dragon. And it shows up every now and then, but only for brief periods of time. And each time it kills some people or destroys some buildings. Yeah. And the Night Watch are not tasked to deal with it. But the captain of the Night Watch, Captain Vimes, he takes it personally, and he wants to defend his city. Yes. And so the plot is pretty simple. When I was a kid and I read this book, I felt like Carrot was the protagonist. Yeah. And in a traditional fantasy book, the orphaned 16-year-old from mysterious origins with a birthmark shaped like a crown. Yep. He would be the protagonist. And in a lot of ways, he does perform that role. Yeah. He's noble and righteous, and he'll motivate anyone who listens to him, right? Yeah. But when I read it as a man, as an adult... As a man! I felt like Captain Vimes was really the protagonist. Yeah, I'm curious what you thought.
I thought it was split 50-50. Okay. Honestly. But I've taken a couple script analysis classes, and... Not to brag. The idea of antagonist and protagonist is so fascinating and complex, and, having heroes and villains are different than having protagonists and antagonists. Yeah. They are not necessarily the same thing. So I am of the opinion that there can be multiple protagonists and multiple antagonists, so I think they're both filling that role. Yeah. I don't know... I would think that the story is about Carrot, seeing as the end wrap-up is about Carrot. But, everybody's there the whole time. Yeah. It's a great cast, and they're all close-knit and have opinions that mesh and are complex in between each other.
They Carrot and Captain Vimes, it is kind of like a relay race. Yeah. Where they both perform different roles at different times in the story. Like, most of the time it's about Captain Vimes finding his purpose and making the decisions to solve the mystery of where the dragon is coming from and who's causing all this chaos within his city. And then oftentimes, or not oftentimes, I would say it's more often Captain Vimes, as he's the detective. Yeah. The lovable curmudgeon. And he's the active member in the choices and the plot that's going on. But Carrot will also, at times when he's alone looking over or watching over the Night Watch outpost, he will go with like the librarian because he has some important piece to the clue where it's like someone stole a book from the library and it's called How to Summon Dragons. So oftentimes they will kind of both play that protagonist role. Yeah. Right? The main antagonist of this story, I would say it's the Supreme Leader. Yeah. And there's a great reveal at the end as to who that is. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty big cast. Yeah, and this book is pretty big too.
And the dragons are also individual characters too. They're not just flame, fire-breathing, angry thing with no character at all to it, which also was one of my favorite parts about the book was the dragon.
Yeah, we get a POV from the dragon.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway. There's so much.
It's really a dense book. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, I don't know when it was written, I think in the 90s, but it will swap POV within the same chapter, where it'll be like one paragraph from Captain Vimes. Yeah. And then next paragraph, it's about Nobby, who's another member of the Night Guard. And then the next it'll be about Carrot. So it swaps POV quite often. Yeah. And one of my biggest problems with multiple POV books is that the split between the characters isn't very even. Yeah. But somehow he just juggles that perfectly.
It's fantastic. And I don't know, like, in the current trend for the YA fantasy books that I read, when you have POVs, multiple POVs, it's usually like a chapter from female main character, 2 chapters from male main character, female main character, male main character. And it's like split by chapters, and then it'll even say like Violet at the top, Zayden at the top. So you get like specific cut out separated moments.
Yeah, and you know how much of that chapter you can expect is going to come from that person's POV.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus, it's like an entire chapter from this person.
Yeah, versus it'll take this long. His is much more fluid. Yeah. But his voicing makes it work, I think.
Yes.
Like we were talking about earlier, it's not like you go into Carrot's perspective and he's like, I'm walking down the library steps. It's not like that. It's still outside of the characters that you get subtle insights into their internal monologues versus the current trend is more internal from the whole time.
It's close third person versus omniscient third person.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, both can work. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but I think the omniscient one lends itself to that fluidity much easier.
Yes, you're right. And he knows how to write in that voice as well.
Yeah, he's fantastic at it.
POV or person, whatever. Yeah. I think another problem I have with the modern day trend of multiple POV books, and I think this is something I struggled with in Throne of Glass. Yes. Not to bring it up again, I'm just going to talk about it every episode. Is that sometimes you'll get a POV chapter from a character who is an important part of the book, but it doesn't move the plot forward. Yes. Or it doesn't tell you anything new about the character or what they're doing or how they're getting closer to their goal. But this book, it's like every single sentence tells you about the character or it pushes the plot forward. Yeah. Or it's sometimes both. Yeah. Like, it never stops. It's a runaway train, this book.
And even if you do think it's not connected, it is at the end.
Yes, it is.
You know, like sometimes you're like, oh, why are we back with the orangutan librarian?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, okay, yeah. I see how this is going to fit into the puzzle later on. Yes. He's searching for the missing book that they took in the beginning. Like, it's connected, which is fun.
Yeah, the mystery itself is not too complex. I like mystery books, and I think it's because I grew up reading Harry Potter. Yeah. And every book is a mystery. Every story is a mystery within that series. And this one is not too complex, really. Yeah. It's like, where's the book?
They give you all the answers from the beginning, too.
Yeah, but it's not really about that. Yeah. It's about them catching them in the act. Yes. And that's what's exciting. It's like, okay, the orangutan, he's going to, like, tell Carrot to find the book, right? Yeah. And then he'll find the book. And then what happens after that? Well, it's quite simple, right? Yeah. You need to find the people who stole this book. Oh, it's just so well done.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's interesting because, like, you wouldn't think that would work. Like, you're
having a simple mystery?
It's a mystery, but you already know it's a solved mystery from the beginning.
The reader, okay. The term is dramatic irony. Yeah. Where the reader knows what's going on, but the characters don't.
Yeah, it's
where the
fun.
first the first chapter is about the elucidated brethren, the guys, the villains of the piece who are summoning the dragon.
Yeah.
And it's
fun.
still a captivating story.
Yeah, because you want to watch them figure it out and you want to catch them in the act.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
So we've mentioned this character before, but I think we should give him a little bit more detail because we said that he's also a protagonist in the story of Captain Vimes. To me, he kind of, on my most recent read through, he felt like Terry Pratchett's insert character.
Yeah.
The characters in Ankh-Morpork, with the very rare select few, are so goofy.
Yes.
And so cartoonishly stupid.
Yes. It's so enjoyable.
Yeah. I don't know if I've talked about this before, but I have this concept called Kevin humor. Have I talked about this on the podcast? Okay. Kevin from The Office, he's the dumb one.
Yes.
Right? He has all these stupid ideas. You know, if you've seen The Office, you know who he is. Usually I don't love Kevin humor, but Terry Pratchett, this book is filled with it.
Yes.
But he has that satirical edge where it's like, this is how peasants would speak if they were reacting to a dragon becoming king.
Yes.
Like, well, it doesn't sound so bad. Having a king or dragon as a king,
Yeah.
he can destroy all of our enemies. We just have to give him our gold. It's a simple tax. Like a dragon sits on a hoard of gold. Social commentary.
Yes.
That stuff, it doesn't bother me. Because I know he's trying to say something about society.
It's not just...
They're just stupid.
Yeah, exactly. There's more to it than that.
And even the closer characters to the narrative, like the secondary characters, are members of the Night Watch. You have like Corporal Nobbs and, what's his name? He's the chubby dude, Sergeant Colon.
Yes.
Sergeant Colon.
The names are so fun.
Yeah. They're dumb too.
Yes.
But they're more distinct.
Yeah. I feel like each character definitely has... They're so
visual too.
Yes,
right?
exactly. Like, even though they are all stupid cops.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, they are.
They are all stupid cops. It's still very specific, and each one has their own things about them, such as the lucky arrow.
Oh my god, the lucky arrow.
The vulnerable parts. Do you know where the vulnerable parts look like?
The vulnerables. They spell it VOONERBLES.
Because it's like, if you didn't know what vulnerable parts were, you would think it was this mysterious extra thing. You wouldn't know that it means, like the underbelly is the vulnerable part.
Yeah,
or,
like the crotch or the armpit or under the neck.
Exactly. Instead of them being like this fabled dragon part. It's just so fun.
It's
and
like
the lucky
the Achilles
arrow is
heel.
fantastic. And this is another trope that they deal with, which is 1,000,000 to 1.
1,000,000 to 1 chance.
1,000,000 to 1 chance.
They always work.
They bank on the fact that them killing the dragon is 1,000,000 to 1 chance.
Yes. So you should explain.
I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself.
No, it's okay. We were talking about Captain Vimes.
Yes.
But just to explain the lucky arrow thing, Sergeant Colon, at one point in his younger days, he was an excellent archer. And he won all these competitions, and he had one arrow that he always won with, and he won't let anyone else touch it. So the Night Watch, a part of their plan, they tried this a couple of times to shoot the dragon out of the air with Sergeant Colon's lucky arrow while they're standing on a rooftop.
Yeah.
And there's a very hilarious scene, which we can go over briefly, where they're... And it's towards the end of the book, when the dragon shows up again and again. And is this before or after the prince shows up to kill it?
This is after, I think.
Okay. So the supreme ruler of the elucidated brethren, his plan is to forge a scene when the prince shows up to kill the dragon, and then he draws his enchanted sword, and he slays it, and then the dragon poofs away.
Yeah.
And after that happens, the installed king, this prince, takes the place of the patrician.
Yes.
And the supreme ruler can manipulate him and be the real ruler behind the scenes, right? So after that happens, the dragon comes back again because more social commentary. The supreme ruler is trying to control this incredibly unstoppable, powerful force of nature. But he can't. And so it comes back to wreak havoc, and then the dragon makes itself the king.
Yes.
The dragon is super intelligent.
Yes.
So the social commentary is so brilliant
so
there,
great.
right? Like, obviously the dragon is a metaphor for nuclear weapons, right?
Yes.
At least that's my take.
Yeah.
That's one interpretation
I can see
of the story. The dragon becomes the king, and then the Night Watch is like, oh, how do we kill the dragon? What do we do about it? And so they plan to shoot it out of the air with one of Sergeant Colon's lucky arrows.
His one lucky arrow.
And you hear in stories like it was 1,000,001 chance, but it might just work. They keep repeating that phrase. He brings it back again and again later too.
So good.
To explain other situations where they keep repeating themselves, but it might just work.
It's so funny.
And it's so brilliant.
I love it. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
But they try to increase the 1,000,000 to 1. Like they're trying to make the odds of killing the dragon with that lucky arrow 1,000,000 to 1. So it's not just standing still on the roof and shooting it.
Yeah.
He has to stand on one leg. Do all these ridiculous things.
So
like
fun.
He's blindfolded.
Yeah.
Like making it more difficult for Sergeant Colin to kill the dragon.
I love it.
When I first read that as a kid, I could not stop laughing.
It's so funny. This is such a laugh out loud book, like the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I didn't mean to detract from your...
it's such a brilliant scene.
It's so good.
Like, what I love in a book, and this is something I've noticed just from my own writing, is if I'm not having fun writing a scene, then I have to make it fun.
Yeah.
Like,
if you're not having fun writing it, your readers will not have fun reading it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what you get, that special magical feeling when reading a Terry Pratchett book. Where it's like, we could talk for ages about every single scene. Like the librarian looking for the book in the library.
Yep.
Corporal Nobbs taking Carrot out on his first night as Night Watch. Like ringing the bell and being like, all's well. And then Carrot takes it and goes, all's well. Hilarious.
So good.
I've been working here all night and Corporal Nobbs hasn't shown me one rope yet. Like that joke at the end of that scene.
Yes.
It is so good.
Another great one is when someone's like, Carrot, there's a bad guy at the end, and they're like, show him the book, or
throw the book at him, Carrot.
Throw the book at him, Carrot. Telling him to arrest him, right?
Yeah, that's
And Carrot just, and the sentence there is, who tells him to do that? I can't remember which
Captain
one.
Vimes.
Captain Vimes is like, Captain Vimes didn't know many things about dwarves, such as they are incredibly strong, and also have no idea what sarcasm is. And Carrot,
or they're very literal.
Yeah, they're very literal. And Carrot chucks the book at him. That's just another great one. Anyway.
And then, well, spoiler alert. Okay, spoiler alert. We have to say. So skip ahead for the next few seconds. That's at the very, very end of the book.
Yes.
The Supreme Leader has been revealed as the fraud that they are.
Yes.
And they're standing at the edge of a cliff thing, but they're inside a castle on the edge of a ledge.
Yes.
And he's like standing like stories above the ground. So Carrot throws the book at him, taking it literally, and then he falls to his death. It's so great. What an amazing way to deal with a villain.
Yeah.
Where it's like, let's not struggle with the morality of, oh, should the just and noble people lock him up because he caused so much death and destruction?
Yes.
Or should we just execute him? Should we torture him?
Yep.
You know, they don't
Carrot
deal with
takes care of
that. And it's like, oh, it's just an honest mistake.
Which is a good example of the same issue we've had in a lot of Rebellion's arcs, which is, what do you do with the big bad at the end of the book?
Yeah. The characters never grapple with the morality.
Yep.
It always comes across as hollow.
This is the way to do it. You need an idiot who takes something too literally and kills him on accident.
Yes. Which is interesting. And we'll talk about that in a second. But Carrot also being raised among dwarves and them taking things very literally and not understanding similes. Or phrases like, throw the book at him, Carrot.
Or show me the ropes.
Or show me the ropes, which are colloquial phrases that humans use to like say something that they don't really mean. Is also set up at the very beginning when we first meet Carrot. So he establishes the fact that dwarves are very literal when the king of the dwarves is trying to communicate with another human, and he's like trying to figure out what the human means when he says like, and Bob's your uncle, and he's like, well, my uncle is actually Thorin strong in the arm. Yeah,
it's fantastic. I love the continuity there, because sometimes you have that and then the author doesn't introduce it until it's needed.
Yeah.
And it's like,
It comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, so he does it perfectly.
It's set up and paid off. And it's brilliant world building because it tells you about the dwarves and their society and their people. It also tells you how Carrot is so good at following rules because he was raised in that literal society. Where they're like, here's your book of laws. And he's like, well, I have to read every page of it and live by it to the T.
Yeah.
It's just so perfect.
Fantastic.
It is so in character for Carrot to do that.
Yeah, it's a great way to inform character without being like, he was tall and strong and had blue eyes and he was really brave.
And noble.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so fun.
It's like, well, he's noble and he follows rules to the T and he doesn't understand simile.
Yes.
Because he was raised by this people.
And the backstory is important there. It's not just like...
It's not just for the sake of having... Yeah, exactly. We were talking about Captain Vimes 20 minutes ago.
Oh my gosh. There's too much good stuff in this book.
I know. It is quite hard to talk about because the plot is relatively simple. And the scenes that happen for them discovering who the murderer is, it's basically a murder mystery plot, are so much fun. Every single one is just brilliant. Captain Vimes, who's Terry Pratchett's insert character, in my opinion.
I agree with you.
Yeah. He sees the people of Ankh-Morpork as sheep, right? And he's
Wake up,
lucid.
sheeple.
He doesn't really judge them. He doesn't think of himself as better than them. He sees himself as a part of them.
Yeah.
And he's frustrated that they are willing to, I guess, lash themselves to something as uncontrollable as a dragon as a king.
Yeah.
Or a king in general. Like, part of the Supreme Ruler's plan is to summon dragons and then convince the people that a king will come to save them.
Yeah.
And the people of Ankh-Morpork are like, that sounds like a great idea. Like, they're promising me that they're going to change my life.
Yeah.
We're going to have true equality and fairness.
Yes.
I'm going to be rewarded for my labors. Why don't we install a king? And Captain Vimes can't see the sense of it.
No.
He's like, why don't you wake up? Like, we have a good life now.
Yeah.
A king will not make things better. And he's frustrated with that. There's only maybe one other character who is as lucid, I will say, as him, and it's probably the patrician.
I think so, but I think that makes sense because he's kind of pulling it out of the strings.
Yeah,
and
it does.
There's a great scene where he's, in the dungeons with all of his rats, and he's like, they're my friends.
You can speak to the rats.
They tell me all their secrets. I've tried to teach them to read multiple times, and they can't pick it up.
Yes. So when that's when the Supreme Leader... Yeah. He has his installed king. There must be a word for that. Kill the dragon.
It's like a puppet.
Yeah, his puppet.
Yeah.
He's the puppet master. And the people overthrow the patrician. They put him in the dungeon, and the patrician says, never design a dungeon that you wouldn't yourself live in.
Yes.
And that's when Captain Vimes finds him after he's thrown in the dungeon. And the patrician just seems completely calm and relaxed. Yeah. He's taken care of by the rats. Anyway, Captain Vimes, his character arc, his first scene is he's face down in the gutter.
Blackout
drunk. And his dialogue is so brilliant.
Yeah. Well,
his willingness to screw around with format and spelling. It reads like a play.
Genius.
And the audiobook... The way it's read is read like a play.
Is fantastic. I can't believe I haven't said that yet.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's fantastic. And specifically the dragon voice.
Yeah, the dragon's voice is awesome.
I loved all of it, but I especially love the dragon voice.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think it's some of my favorite dialogue.
Yeah.
Him, Captain Vimes mumbling to himself, talking about how the city is a wasp's name. A woman. The city is a woman.
It's such...
She'll kick you in the teeth.
It's so good.
Yeah. He starts there, and I can't remember what the impetus for him is to begin to take care of his city and to take care of himself, to fight against the dragon.
Yeah.
It's something. He must talk with the patrician after the dragon first attacks. But the point is... His arc is he goes from being an alcoholic who doesn't care about a job, who has no purpose in life, to finding his purpose, which is defending the city. It's really important to him. And I know there's a reason for it, but I can't recall because I haven't read it quite as recently as you. But he falls in love. There's a really tender, such a heartwarming romance.
It's like it kind of, this is gonna sound weird, but it's like when you see a cute old couple, you're just like, oh.
It's a relationship goals romance.
Yeah, it's so sweet.
Yeah. To becoming saving the city, basically, with him and his ragtag group of failures and harmless misfits.
Yes.
Relatively harmless. Carrot is quite dangerous.
Yeah, but he doesn't know it. That's the best part.
He's a 6 foot tall man with the fighting spirit of a dwarf,
yes.
which makes him very formidable.
Yes.
And Captain Vimes goes from that to basically the leader of the new Night Guard after they've regained their former esteem.
Yes.
Right. And so it's a good character arc for him.
Yeah, it is. And there's another... I feel like I'm just talking about all the fun moments I enjoyed. But after they save the day, the patrician is like, okay, what can we get?
What do you want?
For ya? You get to pick. And they're all 4 of them are like...
We need a new tea kettle, please.
They're like, Errol the Dragon ate our tea kettle. Can we please get a new one? And he's like, a what? And
a tea kettle?
They're like, it's okay if not.
Yes.
They ask for a
I told
slight
you it was too much
pay
to ask
raise.
for.
Yeah, they ask for a slight pay raise, a tea kettle, and a dartboard.
Yeah.
They're like, sometimes we get a little bored in the staff room. We'd like to play darts sometimes.
Oh, they're so lovable.
It's so fun.
They save the city and those are their demands.
And the patrician is like they think the patrician is upset for them for asking so much, but he's like, yes.
That's it?
Nothing else? Like, oh, it's so funny. I loved it.
Yeah, it's so great.
And we get another cute little exit scene at the very end between Carrot and... Is it Carrot and Ramkin? No,
it's Carrot, Corporal Nobbs, and Sergeant Colon.
Yes.
Right? Those 3 talking
yeah.
about what they're going to do afterwards.
It's a sweet...
It's a nice denouement.
Sweet wrap-up. It's...
Are you talking about when they basically say that Carrot is...
The king.
The
long lost prince. Yes. It's fun. He's like, I've always had this little king crown birthmark.
Yeah.
And my sword is passed down from generation to generation.
And it's not a very fancy or magical sword.
And they're like...
It's just well worn and used.
Yes. It's like...
And Carrot is totally unaware.
It feels like kind of like a Looney Tunes. That's all, folks.
Yeah. So Carrot's arc is also... well, this is where we talk about, like, this is where Terry Pratchett is such a brilliant satirist, is Carrot would normally be the hero who saved the day, and he goes from the orphan to the king.
Yeah.
And that kind of happens.
Yeah, it does. But
his...
not in the traditional, he knows who he is, and he's coming to be the long-lost prince from far away.
He doesn't...
It's so good.
He doesn't necessarily find his destiny. He finds his people. His story is kind of like the Ugly Duckling story. Yeah. Right? And his family are Corporal Nobbs, Captain Vimes, Errol, and Sergeant Colon.
Yeah, they're cute.
But Carrot, there are a couple times towards the end. Well, actually, it happens almost right away when he first is shown the ropes by Corporal Nobbs. And he beats up everyone in this bar for breaking the rules. Yeah. Including a troll, single-handedly. Yeah. Where he's like automatically a leader, and he's not even trying to be. And there's another time where they're trying to kill the dragon. It's the 1,000,000 to 1 chance. And there's like this vat of dye underneath the building. Yeah. And that's their exit plan. Like if they try to kill a dragon, it doesn't go accordingly, then they have to jump off like this 5-story building, 10-story building into this like shallow pool of water. And Carrot leads the charge, right? And he inspires them to follow him. Yeah. So that's another part of his character arc too, right? Where at the very end they say, you've got a magical sword, mysterious origins, and a birthmark, and people will listen to you because they love you. Yeah. It's so cute.
It is, and it's also a nice moment to be like, that still is the same story. His ending just wasn't, his happy ending wasn't being king. Yeah. It was him finding the place where he belonged. Yeah. Like, and it still feels even better, and it's so sweet and cute. I love it.
Yes. It's also a nice way to pay off the setup of when a dragon comes, a king will come to save us. He did. So it does happen. He did. Yeah. Which is so hilarious.
Yes. Because, and it's the dramatic irony again, because you're like, yeah.
Because Terry Pratchett, you feel like, oh, it's so ridiculous. Like, This is our problem with rebellion stories, right? There's no Luke Skywalker, there's no Darrow, there's no Katniss. There isn't a hero that is going to come and save the day, that's going to kill the dragon, right? Metaphorically. Like the world that we live in today, it's impossible. Like, how are we going to stop climate change? How are we going to like get rid of nuclear weapons? All this other stuff that feels insurmountable, that we are completely powerless to overcome individually.
Yeah.
But in his story, that kind of happens with Carrot.
Does. Yeah.
But I think it's kind of a wink to the reader.
Yes.
Where it's like, I'll give you the story you want in a satisfying way, but not in the way you quite expected.
Yes.
That's so genius.
Yeah, it is exactly how you put it. It is a wink to the reader. There's a lot of times in this book where it's like, Terry Pratchett's like, I know this is what you want, but it's not what I'm giving you.
Yeah, but you'll still love it.
But you'll love it. Yeah, it's so good. It's so great.
Yeah.
I felt like I was reading a Monty Python movie.
Yes.
In the best way. It was just fun and silly and heartwarming.
And
it was
engaging.
Great. Yes, yes.
So if we could talk a little bit more about the social commentary stuff.
Yeah.
There's one scene in particular, we've brought up like our feelings on how the dragon is metaphor for whatever, fill in the blank. Whatever thing that you feel powerless to resist against.
Yeah.
There's one very sobering scene.
Yes.
And I think you know what I'm talking about.
I think I know what you're talking about.
It's towards the end when the dragon comes back and takes the throne, the real dragon this time. And he tells everyone, I'm the king now, and here's your tax. I'm going to eat you people.
Yeah.
And the supreme ruler who summoned the dragon basically becomes the dragon's puppet.
Yeah.
And his liaison between the people and the dragons.
He's got to go get the virgin sacrifice for the dragon. And,
yes. Yeah. Because according to all fantasy stories, the dragon eats the princess virgin, right? The virgin princess.
Yes.
And so, of course, that's what sustains the dragon. And the supreme ruler talks him down from that and tells him, listen, people will follow you. Trust me. I know people.
Yes.
And he's right. And the dragon says, they will, even if I tell them that I will eat one of their daughters.
Yeah.
He says, yes, they will. It just is so relevant to what we go through today.
Yes.
Where it's like the cost of being the imperial power in the world is horribly steep.
Yeah.
And if regular people who supported those imperial powers knew what that took, like the deaths of children, women, innocent people, then they would say no. But as long as they're taken care of and they don't get to see it, then they're fine with going along with the status quo.
Or as long as they're not the person who's being sacrificed.
Yes. Or the person who's doing the sacrificing.
Yeah.
Which is why Captain Vimes is so incensed with the regular people of Ankh-Morpork who will go along with that logic.
Yeah.
And there's one scene when Sergeant Colon is spreading the message of the dragon that once a month they have to sacrifice one of their people to the dragon.
Yeah.
That's the cost of having an unstoppable king.
Yep.
And almost everyone in the town square he's speaking to, pinning up this notice, is like, oh, that sounds, I don't know if I like that.
Yeah.
And then Sergeant Colon says, exactly, if we unite against the dragon, then we will succeed.
Yes.
What's his saying? He has some kind of like chant.
Yeah. Oh, if we all
unite,
something,
then we won't be ignited.
Yes. If we all unite,
a people united won't be ignited.
Yes.
And then he starts chanting it and cheering it. And then he hears this whomp, 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 and then this gigantic beast land behind him, and it's the dragon.
Yep.
And it's come to enforce its rule. And everyone in the crowd, including Captain Sergeant Colon, they don't unite.
Nope.
Except for one person who has 2 daughters. And he stands up against the dragon. And this is something that really surprised me on my latest read through. I don't know why it struck me so much.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I didn't pick up on it. I just thought, oh yeah, the dragon, he'll just burn people. That's what a dragon does.
Yeah.
And he kills that man who stands up against the dragon. And no one else stands up against it.
It's genius.
I know.
It's genius, and it's applicable to so many things in so many ways.
And it's so smart for the story.
It's it's a little heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is.
You're like, I was just laughing about a guy named Nobby last page, and now I'm thinking too deeply.
And I kind of wish I could read a story that was more funny and wouldn't make me think.
But it's great.
Isn't that awesome?
And it should make you think.
Yeah,
this is a great example of even when, like, people love to say currently that reading is not political.
That is such
And those
BS.
people are incorrect, because even the most silly, slapstick, goofy, dumb,
childish
book you've ever read is still the author saying, there's issues here.
Yeah.
Ugh,
and
it's
it makes
genius.
you think about your real life.
Reading is political. If you disagree with that,
then you're stupid.
fight me and the dragon on my side.
Yeah, I guess some books are more political than others.
Definitely, but you would think that this one wouldn't be the political kind.
Yeah.
It still is.
And that's why it's one of my favorite books of all time.
And why it works so well with younger audiences and older audiences. Because you can, on your first read through, you're like, this is just silly and fun and goofy. And then you get a little older and you're like, wow, this is impactful and silly and goofy and fun.
Yeah.
It's genius.
Yeah, it really is. So there is one last thing about the social commentary that I would like to say.
Yes, please.
And it's something that I don't really have an answer to, although I might have come to it since talking today. And it's something you said about our problem with rebellion stories is that the main character defeats the bad guy and then democracy will save the day.
Yeah.
It feels really hollow. But in this story, Terry Pratchett handles it with humor, where it's like if you're in an uncomfortable situation, humor is a great way to resolve tension.
Yeah.
And that's what he does here with Carrot when he throws the book at I almost said it, at the Supreme Ruler. And, he doesn't deal with the morality or anything like that. Like, it's almost like he just wants to say the statement of, here's the problem, here's how I see the world.
Yeah.
But I don't have a solution. The way that the dragon is defeated is that it falls in love with a swamp dragon.
It's so fantastic.
And yeah, it's hilarious the way that it happens.
I love it. I don't quite know exactly what he was going for, but I think it is intriguing that the evil big bad dragon who's killing everybody and has overwhelming control of the whole people was actually a queen the whole time and not a king.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of, I don't know what he was going for.
I don't either.
I liked it.
I did too. I think as an adult, I wanted something more definitive, but that's because that's what we want. We want to know that there is, Terry Pratchett will take care of us.
Yes.
He understands the chaos of the world. He understands the problems we're up against, and he has something to say about this will solve our problems.
Yeah.
But maybe that makes my respect for him as an author grow even more.
Yeah.
If that he admits that he doesn't have an answer.
Yeah.
Where it's similar to Carrot throwing the book at Lupin. Jeez, I almost said it again. At the Supreme Ruler.
Yes.
At this point, I basically said his name.
Yeah.
Okay, it's Lupin Wants. That's a spoiler, all right? Where it's like he doesn't know how to he doesn't have the answer for like true justice or, are we all going to be okay in the end?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe he's saying all that we do know is that it feels good to laugh.
And it feels good to love, too.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of damage and heartbreak in the world, in my opinion, can be healed with humor and love.
Yes, and paying attention
I'm
to the
not saying
things.
that'll fix everything. Don't take that out of context.
No, and I think that's what something like Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins was trying to say.
And it didn't quite work.
It didn't hit for me.
No.
I think it's a similar message to Guards, but it just wasn't the right story for her to tell. Yeah. She's really good at a Hunger Games type story. Not going to get into it.
Yes.
But it's a similar message.
Yeah.
Where it's like, we don't have any control over the powers that be unless you are that power.
Yeah.
And if you have it, then you should use it responsibly. But things can spin out of control pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And for us plebeians, we should try to focus on the things that we have.
Yes.
And take care of each other.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, Guards tells that story with a much more deft hand.
Yeah.
He doesn't shout at you that, like, the dragon represents this thing.
It's good. That way, as a reader, you can be like, oh, either A, I'm struggling with this huge governmental systemic issue in the world.
Yeah.
Or even you can be like, my boss really does oppress me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
You can
it's interpretive.
take it as what you need that story to be for you.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Yeah.
I think that's basically it.
I think so too.
Was there anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think so.
I love the orangutan.
I love the orangutan. Oh, I did want to say I loved the amount of weird, zany, kooky twists and turns in this book.
Okay.
He does it so well, and sometimes other authors that I've read, such as Sarah J. Maas, try to do crazy twists and turns with no preamble or no hinting whatsoever. And other authors do this too, and they feel forced, or like you just pulled that out of your back pocket on your first draft and then didn't.
It feels like it turns back on a promise they made at the beginning in an unsatisfying way.
But all of his twists, and there are a lot in this book.
Yeah.
And some of them a lot of them are smaller, you know, not huge, monumental, but...
Like the dragon is actually a queen.
Yeah. And he does it so well, and part of why it works so well is because the whole story is kind of like, oh, okay.
It's ridiculous.
And so it works well for him. But they're just... Man, I was along for the ride, and I enjoyed it the whole entire time.
Good.
That's just it.
Do you have a specific example of a twist that you enjoyed?
I think the dragon one is the biggest one.
Okay.
Of the dragon being a girl.
Mm-hmm.
And for...
Yes, queen. Yes. Girl boss.
Yeah, she girl bossed her way into demolishing cities and towns and devouring people.
Oh, we didn't mention this. There's another great twist, which is they keep saying that Lady Ramkin, who's the love interest in the book, she plays much more of a role than that. Mm-hmm. She's so amazing.
Yes.
I love that the way that he describes her is like one of those warrior women tales, like a descendant of one of those warrior people.
Yeah.
She's like a Viking, big, broad, beautiful in her own way.
Yes.
Non-conventionally, which I love. She's in her 40s, maybe.
I think so. Yeah.
Maybe younger, but similar age to Captain Vimes. And she never wed. And so the only... they mention this, that quite often, that very few women in Ankh-Morpork are virgins, especially noble women, except for one, and it's Lady Ramkin. And that's the first virgin that they're going to sacrifice to the dragon.
She's literally sleeping in her little dragon hutch with all their little dragon babies, and they're like, knock, 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 ma'am, we need you. And she's like, are you serious? Are you serious right now? Yeah, I just loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was fun.
It's not also, really a romance book, but...
There's a fantastic moment. This is just another carrot appreciation post. He arrests the dragon.
Yes, at the end.
He arrests the dragon at the end for I think he says, like, for using flames in an irresponsible way to cause harm is like the first one that he can say before people are like, stop it!
Yeah.
What are you doing? Like, the dragon's covered in all this rubble so it can't move, and he's like, you are under arrest! Anyway, I want to arrest a dragon one day.
Yeah.
Just kidding, I wouldn't ever.
It's such a carrot-coated moment.
It's just fun.
Who would think of that? Right?
Yeah.
That's so brilliant.
Yes.
It makes your scene... It's like the comedy dissolves tension thing, where it's like, ooh, this big fight between Errol and the dragon. It's like, oh, so dramatic and so much action. And then he ends it with a comedic moment. Like, not in the Marvel way, where it's like every single dramatic moment ends with a humorous thing. But in this case, it works really well.
Pulling out giant handcuffs.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Well, is this one of your favorite books?
Yes, of course.
Good.
Obviously, it's in my top 5. I love this book.
It's great.
Yeah. What about you? Is this one of your favorite books?
I enjoyed it so much. I think, yes, it's probably one of my favorite books.
Awesome.
And I would recommend it to so many people.
Yeah, me too.
It's so funny.
It's, when you're in the mood for it.
Yes.
Oh my God, it's just brilliant.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I can't recommend it enough. This is one of those rare books where it's like, if you're an adult, read it. If you're a kid, read it. You'll love it. I think that's pretty much it.
Yep.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a comment, subscribe, like. That helps us out a ton.
Yes.
We'd love to carry the conversation forward.
If you have read any of the other Discworld series, let us know which one we should do next.
Which
what ones
are
your
favorites?
favorites?
Jinx, y'all. Bye.